Ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening.
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Deal Room Podcast. Join us as we bring you the inside scoop on business sales and acquisitions. Get across trends in the area and hear the industry's best recount their real-life tips, traps, and experiences. Now, here's your host, Joanna Oakey.
Hi, it's Joanna Oakey here, and welcome back to another episode of the Deal Room Podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Now, this time we're trying something new. We're innovating. This discussion is live from the recent Australian Institute of Business Brokers National Conference, where we were lucky enough to grab a few moments with Abhishek from Winquote. Now, full disclosure, Abby and I were standing in front of a remote control slot car track as we recorded, just in case you're wondering what the references to cars and racetracks are all about. Now, if you're wondering why on earth we were playing with toy cars, well, this year we've launched our rapid contracting service for business sales and acquisitions, an industry-leading and award-winning approach to legal contracting, which means that we can turn around fast contracts in 48 hours for deals under $2 million. Now that's fast, just like racing cars. Lots of fun. Anyway, look, check out the show notes for more info on this, or check out our link to our YouTube clip where you can see me racing in action. Now, look, in this live episode of this podcast, we feature Abby's perspective on financing and the deal room. He shares what he's seeing in the market and the world of finance for buying businesses. His company, Winquote, is, of course, a small business lender. Now, Abby and I cover a lot of ground, including what business brokers and business owners should be doing to prepare before applying for finance. We dig into security options. What can you do if you don't want to secure your property? What about the mistakes that people are making in the market? The differences between starting up and buying an established business. We cover this and more. We also talk through the importance of realistic expectations on the owner's part, when you're financing a business deal. So we cover this and a lot more. Buckle in. Here we go with our episode of the Deal Room Podcast with Abhishek from Winquote. All right, we have Abhishek from Winquote here. Hey, Abby, good to see you at AOBB conference this year.
Thanks, Joanna. Great to see you as well.
Yeah, each year it's just so much fun coming back together and catching up again. Why don't you give us a bit of a rundown? What's the state of the market at the moment in the world of finance for buying businesses?
Well, I think when it comes to businesses and business sales, things are taking a little bit longer than expected. Everyone's dragging their feet a little bit. People are a little bit more cautious. So, it's all about us making sure that, we deliver on a timely fashion, and all our partners alongside that, do the same thing. Our lawyers, accountants, business brokers, we all come together and we make sure that, a deal and a transaction happens in a timely manner. Yeah,
back to fast deals. It keeps coming back to fast deals, Abby, doesn't it?
Yeah, see, as you can see, that little Lamborghini, that blue one, as soon as not everyone's on the same page, we fall off the track, and
I love it.
Deals don't happen.
I love it. So true.
Of course.
Okay, are there any other insights that you have for businesses at the moment who might be thinking about buying a business? What can they do to put themselves in the best position, for finance?
Yeah, well, I think it's all about preparation, like everything. You got to have all your ducks in a row, and you got to make sure that you have everything ready. You have, once again, the right advisors, the right people on your side to make sure things happen. You only sort of get one good shot at, when applying for finance to get the deal done. So you don't want to go, halfway with half the information. You want to make sure that everything's prepared and, you're in order to give yourself the best chance, when buying a business.
Yep. And we're seeing we have a lot of buyers who are interested in creative ways of funding so that they don't have to use their own securities, so securing just against the business they're buying. What's your tips on that? Were there particular industries where that works, doesn't work?
It's a bit of a blanket rule now, we can potentially get up to about 60 to 70% unsecured at the moment. So that's pretty helpful for a lot of people trying to get into business. So if they don't want to put their property as security, we can do 60 to 70%. We can lend against the stock as well. It really opens up the options for our customers. I guess the main thing is you just got to make sure the business you're buying can warrant that amount of debt, and that's sort of where we come in, work all that through with you, and make sure that you're buying a business that can service and everything can be paid on time, and you don't go off the tracks. So.
I love that you keep bringing it back to our race cars. That's epic, Abby.
That's it. That's what we do. We keep you guys on track and make sure things happen.
Love it. Look, it's really interesting, this whole discussion about securing against the business, not having to find other security. What are the types of what are the mistakes you see buyers make, maybe in terms of the type of business they're looking for? Or?
That's a great question. I think industry experience goes a long way. So sometimes some of the mistakes I see is people think when they buy a business it's going to make the same amount of money that when they looked at the business prior. You got to bring your own skill sets. You got to bring a lot of effort. You got to bring that vision that you can bring to the business. It's a lot of buyers just look at it and think when we go to buy a business we'll just automatically make that money. So
but does that then impact their ability to finance their experience in the market?
So one thing is getting the money, but the other thing is servicing the debt, right? So we could sell a good story to the lender, get the money, but we want to make sure that the people that we put forward to our lenders are people that have really thought well about the business. So I would say some of the mistakes that people are making is that they're just not having that enough time to work through it, assessing all their options, and and rushing into it too quick. So from our perspective, it's about engaging once again the right people, the right team. Get them on board to make sure that you're well thought about this business and it's the right business for you. So taking the emotions out of it and putting the practicality back in. So that's the mistakes that we sort of see when someone gets a bit too emotional about it. It really steers it the wrong way, and you get off track again. So I got to come up with a new line.
But it's interesting the ideas here of businesses that don't meet the expectation of the buyers. Yeah. We've had a number of clients that we've acted for over the years who we've helped them buy a business, but then within a year or so it hasn't been, they've come out of corporate, they've thought running a cafe, running I think we had a florist, they thought it would be something to what the reality was. And so I guess particularly if you're financing that deal, you want to make sure, number one, it is what you think life in it's going to be, but number two, that you're not running it down once you get in, because obviously then that makes it a harder business to sell for the same price that you bought it for and pay off your funding. What sort of stories have you seen?
Look, from my side, I guess there is a classic example around someone having a different expectation to what it really is. People coming from their PAYG jobs and then buying into a business. You don't, from a majority of the stories, I don't have a specific one, but from a majority of examples, what we have is people, they really, you're not just doing the operations of, let's just say in a florist selling flowers, you're actually doing the accounting, you're doing HR, you're doing, advertising, you're doing a bit of everything, so when you get into a business, it's not just about, the operation of the business, it's about, what's involved in the whole steps of making sure that business functions, so the stories that we see is that people, they're just not considerate about the fact that there's a lot more involved than just, waking up in the morning and selling flowers, you got to be, you got to be a social media manager. You got to be, make sure your Google reviews are right. You got to make sure your HR team is all set in place. You're protected through legal aspects or aspect legal. So that's another.
There we go again. I love it, Abby.
How much you paying me for this? So you got to be covered on all fronts. Good accountant. Make sure your ATO obligations are in place. You got to be a cash flow financial manager as well. There's so many hats that you have to wear when you run a business, and when businesses don't work out when you acquire them, it's really people that haven't really considered what else is involved. It is the great Australian dream that we live when you do run your own business, but with that dream comes a lot of hard work, and that's where when that hard work is not there. Well, sometimes they put the hard work, but it's also not the knowledge as well, So,
but that's why I say, because when, as you say, the great Australian dream to own your own business. I saw a statistic the other day, something like 80% of people dream of one day being, they either are a business owner or dream of being a business owner. But of course, we live in the world of buying and selling businesses. But there is this question, do you start from scratch or do you buy a business? And from my point of view, I think particularly if you haven't run a business before, buying a business that's set up with the systems and processes in place and a proven model, I think is really hard to beat. As opposed to setting up a business, making all of those mistakes from the ground up. What sort of thoughts do you have on that? Difference, because you probably help fund startups, people fund startups versus buying a business. So do you have any sort of experience in seeing the two sides, which is better?
100%. I guess the variable that it comes down to is timing, right? When you set up your own business, you need to put a lot more time and effort into that transaction. Obviously, that you're putting zero goodwill in that aspect, right? So when you buy an established business, you're buying it with the goodwill of that full setup, the full system, the customer base, the knowledge of that business. So that's why it's called goodwill, right? So you're paying for that extra goodwill in that business. So when it comes to someone setting up, they're creating that goodwill, but that goodwill takes time to create. So both are great, but when you're, got a young family or you've got other financial pressures, if you want to go and start up your own business, you've got to factor that in. So you've got to ensure that you have a sufficient amount of cash flow available to ensure that you can, go through those tough times when you are starting up your business. For some people it's a year, for some people it's 10 years, So, you see a lot of people with great ideas, but the execution gets run off because of the cost of, setting up your business, right? So, whereas if you buy something existing, you have to obviously put a bigger capital outlay, but it comes with a lot of the pre-assumptions of systems in place. So they're both great, but it's just about what personal and financial cost you can put yourself through to establish either. And there's also a lot of grit and resilience that people have to go through in business. So, it's just whatever you're made for and prepared for, So if you want something that's a bit more, the paths are laid, or the road is laid for you to drive in the right direction.
I love it. Back to the racetrack.
Back to the racetrack. Then you've got, then you can, then you can invest just your time in further growing that business. But when you're starting from the ground up, you've got to build that foundation, and that foundation can take some time and, a lot of knowledge that you need to acquire in that time as well, So they're both great, but it's just about what journey people want to run, So
Okay. All right. Now, back to trends. So we talked a little bit about where financing is at the moment. Where are you seeing? So you said what we're seeing in the market at the moment is slowing down in terms of banks, funders being slower to process the loans? Like what's the cause? What does that look like?
Look, I think there's been a lot of change in the market. You've seen businesses always changing and evolving, and so that's the same for banks and funders, right? So when there's that change, there's also a lot of time that's involved in moving systems, changing your business model, changing which direction as to who you want to lend to and how you want to lend. So banks are also businesses, right? So they have to transition and focus on what's what relevant to them and then how they want to lend, right? So as things are taking time, as there's changes in the market, they have to adapt as well, which can lead to the processes taking a little bit longer. I think the key thing is from our side is about making sure that we set the expectation for everyone. So you're setting the expectation that if something's going to take a certain amount of time, we know that up front, and we work towards that deadline and all parties are involved. I think the issues come about is when that time is underestimated and then, you know, and expectations are not met, you know. So, but if all parties are made aware throughout the process, and that's sort of what our job is to do, is to, you know, keep all parties happy and, you know, manage throughout the process, and to make sure the transaction is project managed. That's sort of where we sort of fit in and help with that. But the other thing is that banks and other funders, they all have different timelines. So, and when we go to finance for a business transaction, you know, it's depending on which lender we go to and how much time it takes. So, as I said, it's just as long as it's effectively communicated. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abby.
No worries, Joanna. Good to see you. Take care.
It's been a pleasure.
Let's get back on track.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Deal Room podcast. We hope you're now primed for your next deal with these pointers and have enjoyed these fascinating insights. Now, if you'd like more information about this topic, then head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com, where you'll be able to download a transcript of this episode, as well as access any contact details and any other additional information we referred to in today's podcast. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with our guests today and the services they offer, you can go ahead and check out our show notes for a link right through to them and their details. You can also book in directly with our legal eagles at Aspect Legal if you'd like to soundboard your next steps, discuss a legal question, or find out more how we can assist, whether that's with buying or selling a business, or perhaps somewhere in between. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the Deal Room podcast on your favourite podcast player to get notifications whenever a new episode is out. We'd also love to hear your feedback, so please leave us a review and rating if you're already one of our subscribers, or even if you're listening to this podcast for the very first time. Every review helps our team produce valuable content for you. Well, thanks again for listening in. You've been listening to Joanna Oakey and the Deal Room podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. See you next time. Aspect Legal has a number of great services that help businesses prepare for a sale or acquisition, to help them prepare in advance and to get transaction ready. We've also got a range of services to help guide businesses through the sale and acquisitions process. We work with clients both big and small and have different types of services depending on size and complexity. We provide a free consultation to discuss your proposed sale or acquisition. So see our show notes on how to book a time to speak with us, or head over to our website at aspectlegal.com.au.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment. Thanks for listening to the Deal Room podcast. To find out more about this episode and other episodes in the series, check out the show notes or head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com.au.